Hi guys, happy Thursday. I hope everyone's having a wonderful week so far. Thank you so much for joining me with this week's live. We're going to give everybody a minute or two to hop on and join us. This week's live topic came as a request and a question last week, and I figured if one or two people are asking this question, you're probably asking this question as well. So we're going to be diving into that today. Hey Ashley, thanks for joining with us live. If you're watching this live, please comment Team Live. If you're watching this replay, please comment Team Replay. We are going to dive in here in just 1 minute. Let me go grab my water real quick. I've got my comfy pants on. I love my good Vuori joggers. I've got my sweatshirt on because it's a little bit cold in our room today. So we are talking processed foods. Now, you might believe as soon as you hear the word processed foods, oh my gosh, no, this is bad. I can't have this. Well, I have to shatter your earth or shatter the ground or whatever it is today. Processed foods. All of our food has to be processed. Usually we have this belief that processed foods are less nourishing and unhealthy. I have my notes here, that's why I'm looking down. However, we've been processing foods for hundreds of years. Back over in England and in Europe, they started smoking meats to help preserve them. We started making cheese to help preserve milk. We're processing foods by canning them and freezing them so that we can use them for extended periods of time. All of our food has to be processed in order for us to eat it, unless you have a ginormous farm in your backyard where you are growing all of your things, you are picking them and you are making them from scratch and you are doing nothing with them at all. However, usually that's not happening. None of us have, maybe you do. I don't have a huge plot of land in the backyard where I can grow and do all of that stuff, nor do I have the time in my day. So all of our foods have to be processed in order for us to eat them. And not all processing is bad. There are reasons why we process our foods. So you also are doing processing too. When you grind up flaxseed to add it into something or to make flour, if you're taking almonds and making flour, you are processing. When you're making applesauce or you're pureeing fruit, that is processing fruit. If you are making pickles, you are processing. You are doing that fermentation process. If you're taking cream and shaking it like that third grade science project and you'd make it into heavy cream, the heavy cream into butter, that is processing. So all of this stuff is ways that we change food from that original way that we're receiving it in order to be a more consumable or desirable form. So we process things for safety and preservation, because we don't want to be buying stuff every single day. We don't want to have to go out to the farm every single day to milk the cow to get it. We process it through pasteurization to kill off all the bacteria so that we also don't get sick. We process food for flavoring and acceptability. Nobody is out there eating grains of wheat, just eating it as their meal. We have to make it a little bit more desirable and also make it acceptable flavor-wise too. We do it for our nutrition and our health. We grind the wheat into flour. We remove allergens for things. So someone who has a lactose allergy or nut allergy might have to have foods that are going to be a little bit more processed in order to remove the lactose or to make sure that there are no nuts or gluten in that food that they are having. We also do this for health and nutrition through the enrichment and fortification process. So fortification means through changing our grains of wheat into, our breakfast cereals or our toast, we do lose some of the nutrients because we're breaking down that whole grain. We're getting rid of the bran and the bran and the germ. We're left with the endosperm. We're losing some of those vitamins and minerals. So through the processing, what we have are fortification laws here in the US where we add back in those vitamins and minerals that were lost. They are added back in after making the product or through the processing so that we have less vitamin and mineral deficiency. Many people, you don't hear anybody really saying that they have a B vitamin deficiency because we're getting so much of it through our fruits and our foods. We also have enrichment laws which help meet our needs too, which means that enrichment is if it was not there before and it was added in. You're not naturally getting calcium or vitamin D out of your orange juice. They're adding calcium into your orange juice. Vitamin D is already in milk. Sometimes they can add it back in. That would be fortification. So enrichment and fortification are part of our processing, and they're there for our health and to help us feel better and be healthier people. They also help with shelf life. So if we're processing things where they have a longer shelf life, you're not throwing out your loaf of bread all the time. You're able to keep your eggs in the refrigerator for longer. You're able to keep things in, the cans in your cabinets for longer as well. So all of this stuff helps us. It's processing that actually helps us. What we have to really pay attention to is that the ingredients and the nutrients that are inside of things. Minimally processed is very comparable to unprocessed foods. So if you're looking at the nutrition facts panel of like a tomato and comparing it to like a tomato that you got out of the ground, this tomato might be washed. It might have been put in that little shell in order for you to have a pint of cherry tomatoes. It's gonna be basically the same from the unprocessed tomato. But what's really important, rather than saying like, oh my gosh, all of our food is processed, because it is processed, is looking at the ingredients and the nutrients that are in these things. So if we're going and having like, I wanna have a really good, well-rounded breakfast, and we're pulling out cereal and we see the cereal is super high in sodium, which is a preservative, and it's super high in added sugar to make it more palatable, and we don't want those things in our food, what we can do is we have that choice to go ahead and buy something else. But some of these things are added to the product to make it more palatable, to make it more shelf-stable. So it's your job of saying like, okay, how much saturated fat do I actually want to have in this food that I'm having? Am I okay with a couple grams? Usually a couple grams is perfectly fine. If we're getting 20 grams of saturated fat out of something, that is a little bit elevated. I would definitely be concerned. But if we're getting a little bit of the added sugar and a little bit of the fat for flavor, it's going to be completely okay. So asking yourself, if we're looking at that nutrition facts panel, I want to keep this lower in sodium, probably going to be a little bit less processing. Great. I want to keep this in lower added sugars. Great. That's a choice that we can absolutely make. And then also looking at the product too. If we're saying like, okay, I'm wanting bread and oh my gosh, it's so processed. Well, looking what's in the ingredients list. Is it good, wholesome ingredients, or does it seem like it's a lot of added things and preservatives? I have my loaf of bread right here. What we have in here, so that it's always listed from most prevalent to least prevalent. Organic sprouted whole wheat flour. So I know I'm getting a whole grain out of this. It has water. It has a whole grain blend. So flaxseed, rye, wheat, corn, kamut, buckwheat, millet, rice, oats, quinoa, and more. We have organic wheat gluten, which helps to make this. It has light molasses for the coloring. And then it says 2% or less of some of these other things in here that help to make it more palatable and also shelf-stable too. So just because something is processed does not mean it is automatically bad or that we should not have it. We have to create more awareness around the stuff that we're having, what's inside of things, the variety, the nutrients, and is it really high in saturated fat, sodium, and added sugar. Additives can also be things like vitamins and minerals. Additives can be things like calcium phosphate that helps to preserve things, that helps to prevent caking, and it's naturally found in Swiss cheese. Those are things that are naturally happening through this process in order to get some of the products. So are processed foods bad for us? No. It depends really on what exactly you're having and the degree of processing too. If you're looking for something of like, I'm taking this from the original form and I'm making it into something completely different, let's look at the nutrition facts panel. Let's look at the ingredients list and understand what exactly we're having, what's been added to the product. But just because something is processed does not mean automatically it's bad. All of the foods that we are eating are processed unless you are growing them yourself. So I want to know, what questions do you have about this? Does this answer your questions? Does this kind of feel a little bit like eye-opening of like, okay, just because it's processed doesn't mean it's bad. There are things and reasons why we do processing in the first place, for food safety, for convenience, for just being able to save money and not have to buy fruits and vegetables all the time. I've been loving the frozen vegetable bags where there's steam fresh ones that you can throw in the freezer to the microwave. Those are ready to go. They're flash frozen. It's something that's definitely processed, but they are cut, they're flash frozen, they're ready to go, picked in the peak of freshness in season. So I know that I'm probably getting more nutrients out of it rather than picking the green beans right now that are probably out of season, traveled 1,500 miles to get to my grocery store. I would much rather have the frozens than buying the ones that are considered fresh that have traveled probably weeks to get to where I am now. So remember, processed foods usually believed to be less nourishing and unhealthy. Not completely true at all. It all depends on what you're having. It all depends on what that final outcome is. and looking at the label and saying how much sodium, how much saturated fat, how much added sugar in here is really going to help you determine, is this something that I want to eat or something too that might have things in here that I don't want to have. Just because it's something that's processed, no one is really eating that grain in itself. We have to change it into something that's more palatable, but there's always going to be other nutritious options. And the big thing that we drive home with all of our clients is that balance is what matters. If you're trying to do things that are less processed or fresher things, that's great. It's going to take a little bit more of your time, but there is no shame in using a frozen vegetable or, chicken sausage or whatever it is as part of your meal, along with things that are freshly prepared too. Not everything has to be made from scratch. It's all about balance. It's all about taking care of yourself and understanding the choices that we're making. So our February masterclass is happening February 24th at 12 p.m. Eastern. The replay will be available. We are diving into the secret macronutrient for weight loss, and that is protein. You're probably not eating enough protein. Most people aren't eating enough protein. This class is going to dive into exactly how much protein you should be eating, how to get it in, why we need protein, how to get it in without using protein shakes or supplements in order to achieve your goals, and answering so many other questions. So if you are interested in this, drop a protein, just type protein in the comments below. I'll send you over the link to join right now. It's $50. If you want to join our masterclass membership, you get all of our masterclasses included in that, along with 10% off all programs and coaching, along with a monthly Q&A with me. That's only $29 a month. So if you're like, all right, well, I'm going to want all of these masterclasses and I like to save money, you can join our masterclass membership, $29 a month. So we hope to see you inside. Have a wonderful rest of your week and have a great Thursday. See ya.